In the United States, this is Latin music. And this is Latin music. This is Latin music. And this is Latin music. Its roots are sometimes obvious, and sometimes not. It has accordions, and it doesn't. It's in Spanish, except when it's not. It's a fusion with jazz or reggae. And country. It's as diverse as the Latino experience, as American as it gets. Latin music, USA.
Funding for Latin Music USA is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This project is also supported in part by an award from the National Endowment for the Arts and by Latino Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you. Thank you.
In the 1950s, Los Angeles was known to most of America as a shining city of freeways and movie stars. But there was another Los Angeles, unseen by most of the country. There, tens of thousands of Mexican Americans lived in crowded barrios, many just getting by, working in tedious, often backbreaking jobs. Then in 1958, the son of a factory worker from a tough Mexican neighborhood just outside LA rose out of the barrio and into the national spotlight. Richie Valens had become the first Mexican-American rock and roll star.
There won't be no tutti frutti, no lollipop. Come on, baby, just rock, rock, rock.
Richie Valens comes out of Pacoima, California, in the San Fernando Valley here in Los Angeles, and he becomes the great brown hope. He is the man that is going to not just sit in the garage and play music, but maybe go to Carnegie Hall.
Valens, born Richard Valenzuela, had been unknown beyond Pacoima until a young record producer heard him play at a local movie house and invited him to his Hollywood studio.
When he walked in and he got his axe out and started noodling around, why, this one guy comes and said, "What the hell is this?" He said, "A Mexican rock and roll? There ain't no such thing." I said, "Hold on, pal."
Well, come on, let's go, little darling.
We changed his name to Valens because I knew that if we put a record out and called it Valenzuela, they wouldn't even listen to it. They'd just throw it in the trash can.
Well, now swing me all over.
When Richie took off and his record came on and it hit the stations and we were all, yay! We were excited, not only because he was Richie, but because he was Mexican-American.
After we'd worked together for about 3 months, one day he said, "Bobo, I want you to come out and meet my mother." He took me through the little house, and under the house they had a couple of sleeping bags, and he and his cousin, that's where they slept. And then at that point, that's when he said to me, "Bobo, the one thing I want is I want to buy my mother a home." So I said, "Well, don't worry, Richie, you're going to be a big star, and we'll get you a home for your mother."
Later that summer, as Keane drove Valens up the coast for an appearance in San Francisco, the song that would become a cornerstone of Chicano rock and roll began to take shape.
I had a new Thunderbird, and Richie was in the back with his guitar. And all of a sudden there's the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dee-da-da-da. And I said, "Wow, man, that might make a hell of a record. Let's do something with that."
The irony is that the biggest hit that Richie Valens ever had, and the song for which he will be forever known, was sung in Spanish, La Bamba. And the audience, the Anglo audience, seemed to look past that or didn't care.
What greater moment could there be for us than to have this kid, this Mexican-American kid from Pacoima, with a record that people in Poughkeepsie are singing to, and they don't even know what the lyrics mean. It gives white America and black America the opportunity to look at some brown-skinned people and say, "Hey, I like that music."
He's one of the bright lights in rock and roll at the end of the 50s. And he's invited to go on this tour with a guy named the Big Bopper and Buddy Holly of the Midwest. A real huge break for a 17-year-old Chicano kid from Southern California.
After a performance in Iowa, a small plane carrying the three headliners took off for Fargo, North Dakota, despite an approaching snowstorm.
I had my car radio on KFWB. They were playing the hell out of Donna. And he said, "And now the late, great Richie Valens on his #1 record, Donna." That was the biggest shock I've ever had in my life.
The crash occurred in a light snow northwest of Mason City and also killed the pilot of the plane. Richie Valens' latest recording, Donna, is #1 on the CHUM hit parade. Further details of the crash.
It would come to be known as the day the music died, February 3rd, 1959.
I cried. I went in and cried. Still cry a little. Yeah. He was my son. He'd become my son.
4 months after Valens' death, the movie that featured his only filmed performance opened at a drive-in near Pacoima.
Everybody in town came to see our Richie. And we're sitting there patiently waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally, he came on. And we all, yeah, Richie. Looking at him. And as it ended, and he walked away, it was kind of like a lull. You know, Richie's gone. We wanted more, but that's all we got. Somebody in the back started honking his horn. What it was, he was showing appreciation, and he started honking. So all of a sudden, the whole theater just started honking. One big loud honk. And the people, everybody was showing their appreciation. This was our way of saying, "Hi, Richie."
Valens was only 17. He'd gone from obscurity to having 4 hit records in a career that lasted barely 8 months. It was a feat that has never been duplicated. For half a dozen years after Valens' death, a handful of Mexican-American bands had national hits. And like Valens, they used names that masked their identity. Few in the television audience knew that the premieres came from the barrios of East LA. Cannibal and the Headhunters, too, lived in the barrio and picked up R&B harmonies from their African-American neighbors.
There was this black group called the Showcases. They would pass in front of my house, and they would sing and harmonize and hang around together. It was a beautiful thing. And I would follow them, and I'd just be in awe, just following them around and just watching them sing and harmonize together. And it was great, man. And they took, those black guys, took this Chicano guy and took him under their wing and showed me how to harmonize, showed us all how to harmonize.
Too many teardrops for one heart to be crying.
Question Mark and the Mysterians had a #1 hit with 96 Tears, sung by Rudy Martinez, the son of migrant field workers in Michigan. Sam the Sham of Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs was actually Domingo Zamudio of Dallas, Texas. And Jose Maria de Leon Hernandez packed dance halls across the Southwest as Little Joe, with his band Little Joe and the Latinaires.
We wanted to be hip and play what was happening at the time, and whatever, the bands dressed like, we wanted to emulate and play the music and dress to look like what was happening then.
But the era of Mexican-American bands downplaying their identity with matching tuxedos and R&B sounds was coming to an end.
That will be a day not of the white man, not of the black man. That will be the day of man as man.
You've got Dr. Martin Luther King marching in the South. You've got Black Pride developing. We're looking at that stuff. And we're seeing that just as our African-American brothers can think about roots and going back to Africa, maybe it's important for us to discover the roots that we never paid any attention to because our parents wanted us to become Americans. So you suddenly see the onset of Mexican and brown pride.
This new sense of ethnic pride inspired Chicano artists to search out their musical roots. Little Joe's journey away from R&B toward more Latin sounds began in the late 1960s, on tour in Northern California.
We checked in about 3, 4 in the morning. We were tired and sleepy and didn't pay much attention to the surroundings. But next morning, I got up early because I wanted to go get a haircut for the performance that we were gonna have that evening. And I remember walking out of the room, out in the street, and seeing all these long-haired people, like women or guys or what? And all of a sudden, I thought I needed a haircut, and I felt naked. And I said, oh my God, what is this? I didn't cut my hair for quite a while after that. And at some point didn't shave, just fell into that incredible craziness, weirdness that was happening. Great bands like Santana and everything that was happening in the Bay Area just gave me an awareness that I didn't have before. And I wanted to change my music. I wanted to, you know, expand on it.
Little Joe's musical education began in the fields of Central Texas, where Mexican Americans and African Americans worked side by side.
Out in the fields, they were picking cotton, a whole row of black people, a whole row of Mexican Americans. And here you have this guy singing rancheras, and this guy's over here singing the blues, you know. So that was his influences.
My dad, of course, was a laborer, so we all pitched in, we all worked in the fields. I actually dropped out of the 7th grade. My dad was in prison at the time, and it was through music that I was able to work out of the circle of poverty.
As a boy, Little Joe would hear a polka-like folk music called conjunto, coming from roadside cantinas and country fiestas. And over the radio broadcast from the ballrooms of San Antonio and Austin, he heard big band music called Orquesta Tejana, the music of the aspiring middle class of Texas Mexicans, or Tejanos.
All these musical experiences just helped me expand on the music that maybe I was born to perform. I brought that back home to Central Texas. The people were freaked out. I was wearing robes and chains and crosses, and Carlos Santana turned us on to his boot maker in San Francisco, so we had these leather boots, high heels, and marijuana plants on it. People would walk up to me, they didn't know whether to shake my hand or kneel and pray or what, but...
¡Ah! La cumbia de la medianoche.
Mexican-American identity, once hidden, even scorned, was now a source of pride. Thousands of Chicanos united behind common causes, like fighting for better education and ending the war in Vietnam that was killing young Chicano men at a staggering rate.
Mexicans, Mexicanos, Chicanos in particular, were volunteering. Just kind of was that thing of proving themselves as an American, proving themselves that we belong, and the macho thing, and so on. It probably took 40 or 50% with some of our best musicians, you know.
We're protesting against the discriminatory draft laws that give employment to all the Anglo middle-class people of this country and make the heaviest burden of the war fall on the Mexicano.
All of a sudden, you had people doing more socially relevant material about the war, about the poverty, about what was happening in East LA, and about pride.
Family's still the #1 institution. Respect for old within the young revolution. And I'm never moving out. I'm never moving out, no, out of the barrio. I was born in the barrio, and the barrio I will die.
That's when the names of the groups started to change. Because now it wasn't like we had to hide now and try and slide through or, you know, or fall through the cracks. We don't have to say, excuse me, I'm sorry anymore.
The Salas brothers changed their band's name from the Jaguars to Tierra, Earth. A band called the VIPs now flaunted their Mexicanness, renaming themselves El Chicano. And Little Joe now called his group Little Joe y la Familia and was drawn to Chicano causes, especially the farm workers' struggle for decent wages and living conditions, led by Cesar Chavez.
people that aren't farm workers, that don't do farm work, that don't do the stoop labor, will never know or understand what these folks are up against. I grew up doing that. I know, I can relate to that.
Inspired by Cesar Chavez, Little Joe recorded a song called Las Nubes, the Clouds, which became an anthem for the farm workers' movement.
Your hero and mine, Little Joe y la familia!
It's about people feeling oppressed, but with a feeling of hope and tomorrow will be better. You can always aspire for more and keep the struggle. Ya todo se me acabó, no me puedo resistir. Si voy a seguir sufriendo, mejor quisiera morir.
Yo voy vagando en el mundo sin saber a dónde ir. Los años que van pasando no me canso de esperar. Y a veces que estoy cantando mejor quisiera llorar. ¿Para qué seguir sufriendo si nada puedo lograr? Sing it with us. Las nubes que van pasando se paran a lloviznar. Parece que se sostienen cuando a mí me oyen cantar.
Las Nubes became a landmark in the emerging musical movement known as Tejano. It combined elements of conjunto-style polka and orquesta-style horns with a modern rhythm section of electric guitars, bass, keyboards, and drums.
That's Las Nubes.
If he brings you and I wish you all the best. It's your happiness that matters most of all.
In country music, too, Chicanos were making an impact. Led by Freddie Fender, born Valdemar Huerta in a tiny Texas town near the Mexican border.
I'll be there before next teardrop falls. Si te quiere de verdad.
With two #1 songs in 1975, the easygoing Fender had become a darling of television variety shows after nearly 2 decades of battling discrimination and his own demons. Before Freddie Fender, Mexican Americans had been pretty much ignored by national television.
It was 1959. I started recording when I had a song going, but I got busted in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for smoking grass.
And let's show it this time.
And the song was had just gotten into the charts.
Oh.
And I had just gotten into the prison.
Clink, yeah.
So the song had, I mean, they could not promote me.
No. It's hard to have you go out and talk to all the DJs. They just couldn't speak.
How long were you in jail? They gave me 5 years anyway.
What?
5 years.
5 years?
For a handful.
Of what?
And it was mostly
It's
siege.
Texas, right? It wasn't even...
Ay, nena, vamos a bailar. Muy juntito para vacilar, hey, hey.
Before being imprisoned at age 23, as much for consorting with a married Anglo woman as for possessing marijuana, Valdemar Huerta had begun to make a name for himself in South Texas, recording Spanish versions of rock and roll hits.
At a radio station, they started calling him El Bebop Kid because that's what he enjoyed, you know. That's what he loved, was rock and roll. That's who he was, El Bebop Kid.
Bent on reaching the English language market, El Bebop Kid used various names before settling on Freddie Fender, a name he appropriated from his guitar.
Wasted days and wasted nights I have left for you behind.
In 1959, Fender recorded a song in English that he'd written about his own troubled love life.
Your heart belongs to someone else.
My mother tells me that he was at a club, as he always was at clubs, you know, and I guess he was feeling blue and down again, and he wrote that song in the toilet on some toilet paper, you know, and he wanted to name it "Lonely Days and Lonely Nights," but a lot of songs were already, you know, titled that, you know, so that's how it came to be, Wasted Days and Wasted Nights.
That song would win Freddie Fender a gold record years later when he re-recorded it with a new arrangement. But at the time, he scrambled just to get it played on local radio and sang it night after night in dingy dives around Texas and Louisiana.
The police, you know, would always have to come almost every night, you know, barroom fights, and it was just wild, and they just loved it, you know, and you know, and my dad always said, if you didn't have a weapon, they'd give you one at the front door.
His arrest dashed any hopes of quick national success. He bounced around for the next dozen years, doing all manner of odd jobs, from picking cotton to washing cars.
When it rains, it really pours.
I was in Corpus Christi getting my car washed, and I hear this guy singing, washing my car.
Lots of clouds are everywhere.
I said, hell, that's Freddie Fender, man. I need to meet him bad, you know? And that's when I walked back there. I said, you Freddie Fender? He said, yeah. I said, Freddie, what are you doing washing damn cars, man? He said, well, I'm getting too poncy, you know, and he said, I'm getting too old. So I said, you ain't never gonna get that old. He said, here's my card. You want to record? Come to Houston. We'll get busy.
Wasted days and wasted nights.
I remember when I went to see about him, when I first signed him up, him and his wife were living in what they call a chicken coop. It was a real chicken coop. They had bunks and beds and then he had 2 or 3 kids. And that's where he lived at. He was dirt poor. I mean dirt poor.
Why should I keep loving you?
There was segregation. It was still, you know, down on Mexican. You know, it'd been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, and I think we just broke the meter when we brought Freddie and broke him pop, you know? And they had to like him whether they liked him or not. Yeah, I sold every country artist that was going. I got the producer of the year, and you got the artist of the year in Nashville, and they hated to give it to us, but they had to. Had too many sales.
And he knew the sufferings of people. And I think that's why he opened up people's hearts. And when they heard his music, they opened up their wounds and their hearts. And they mended, almost like they were mending or going back to their lives and understanding their sufferings through Freddie's music. And Freddie was just trying to tell him in his music that it's okay.
Between 1974 and 1983, Freddie Fender had 21 songs on the country music charts, many with Spanish lyrics. He'd made Mexican-American music impossible to ignore, paving the way for a new generation of Chicano artists.
My love.
During the 1980s, a band from East Los Angeles readily crossed cultural borders with their music, ignoring barriers of language and race. They called themselves Los Lobos, the Wolves. They'd been young rockers from East LA's Garfield High in the 1970s, when the Chicano movement inspired them to put their electric guitars on the shelf and explore their musical roots.
The Mexican music was always available, but, you know, being young kids, growing up on rock and roll, you know, we didn't really care about it too much. But as Chicano cultural renaissance started to take hold, it fed into the notion of us playing traditional music.
just for fun in our backyards, you know, and just kind of learning old Mexican songs, just as a hobby, really. And that's how it all started.
Chicano somos señores.
We found these instruments in pawn shops and secondhand stores, and we didn't know what they were. And then we sought out local musicians, Mexican nationals, who played this music in restaurants and bars, and we sought them out to find out, like, how the heck do you play this thing? How do you tune it?
My brother-in-law took me to a party, and he had an accordion in his closet. He used to take it home. And so I took it home and started fooling around. And we worked our way around to conjunto music or Tex-Mex.
Por mi madre yo soy mexicano, por destino soy americano. Yo soy de la raza de oro, yo soy Mexico-americano.
We started buying records. I had Los Alegres de Terán records, and then Dave started, you know, getting Flaco Jimenez records. It was like learning all over again, you know. It was going to school again, going like, wow, Flaco Jimenez.
Leonardo Jimenez, known as Flaco, the skinny one, began playing conjunto accordion as a child in the 1940s. He has almost single-handedly repopularized this style of Tex-Mex music, recording with everyone from Dwight Yoakam and Bob Dylan to the Rolling Stones.
My dad, Santiago Jimenez, and Mr. Narciso Martinez were, considered the pioneers of this kind of Tex-Mex sound, that oompa sound. The settlers from Germany settled around the Texas area. They brought this kind of music, that polka music. Then came my dad in 1936 with Narciso Martinez, were the first ones that introduced this Tex-Mex sound, the accordion sound. It was just instrumentals, no lyrics, or just polka or waltzes. But then my dad managed to put lyrics on the same beat, but with lyrics.
Cada vez que cae la tarde, miro y miro para allá. Para hacerte una ceñita sin que mire tu mamá.
The first recordings were made in the 1930s, you know.
They would record just with the accordion by itself, and the accompaniment part was this.
The bass
lines
lines,
of the accordion,
yeah.
which will sound.
You know.
So then the bajo sexto comes in, and it's this instrument here is a 12-string bass rhythmed instrument. So it kind of took that sound there, the accompaniment part of the accordion, and they incorporated it with the
So
bajo
it's like the brother of the accordion.
So now that same song he just did, that was a kind of a oompa sound, German sound. So now with the bajo sexto, it would sound.
Back when I first started, I recorded in some garage studio way out there in the outskirts of town, you know. Started recording and some chicken just passed by, you just kicking and started keep on playing, you know.
gusta hacer las cosas a mi modo. Que yo soy de tercera, pero yo soy de primera, con orgullo yo soy México tejano.
There was no kind of respect for this kind of music, you know. It was just like, that's cantina music, that's whatever, you know. Then around 1955, rock and roll came along. So I got interested in rock and roll, plus, you know, the blues.
Flaco can blend into just about any kind of music there is. Rock and roll, blues, country.
The key to my heart, you hold in your hand, and nothing else matters. We're together again.
By the late 1980s, Mexican-American music was enjoying unprecedented popularity. And when Los Lobos recorded La Bamba for a movie about the life of Richie Valens, a whole new generation fell in love with Chicano rock.
And became a huge, huge hit. And I guess most people expected us to do La Bamba #2, but we just decided we want to take all that focus and put it on what we were really about for those first 10 years, playing traditional Mexican music.
No sé cómo decirte, no sé cómo explicarte, que aquí no hay remedio de lo que siento yo, de lo que siento yo.
Ignoring conventional music business wisdom, Los Lobos followed La Bamba not with more rock and roll, but with an all-acoustic album of Mexican folk songs, La Pistola y el Corazón, The Pistol and the Heart.
Everybody from coast to coast said, hey, Los Lobos commit commercial suicide. But for us, it was a proud moment. It was cool that some kid in Tokyo was going to be able to listen to a wapango. It was cool that somebody in Helsinki, Finland, was going to be listening to a son jarocho.
Con mi pistola, mi corazón, y aquí siempre
And then, you know, we got complimented for our suicidal tendencies by getting a Grammy Award.
con la pistola y el corazón.
Linda Ronstadt, the best-selling female rocker of the 1970s, also confounded the pop music establishment, recording an all-Spanish language album.
She's a Tucson girl, and she's a Mexican-American girl, but we don't know that through her successes in her earlier recordings.
When I left home, I was 17, and I was kind of hoping that the musicians that I had met over in LA, that I was going to form a little band with the Stone Ponies, that we could maybe make a record in Spanish. Because after all, Richie Valens had a hit with La Bamba. But the record company didn't like that idea. My father's side of the family, when they got together, they sang in Spanish. Someone would start a song somewhere, someone would have a guitar, start to plunk out a few chords, and the songs would start. And they were these beautiful, beautiful old songs. Tierra del Sol, suspiro por verte, y ahora que lejos yo vivo sin luz, sin amor. Y al verme tan solo y triste, cual hoja al viento, quisiera Quisiera llorar, quisiera morir de sentimiento.
After 20 years as a pop star, Ronstadt had enough clout in the industry to fulfill her dream, a Spanish-language album based on songs from her childhood.
Who was going to buy this record is what the record company said to me. I don't know, I said. I just couldn't hear that. The music was screaming in my ears, and that was that. I had to go back and find that little girl that was falling asleep in the uncle and aunt's laps, hearing that mixture of Spanish and English, because that's really who I was first before I became a pop star or whatever, all that craziness that went on in the 70s, you know, in the 60s and the 80s. It was just nutty. Making that record just helped cement my personality back together again.
Ronstadt's 1987 release, Canciones de mi Padre, Songs of My Father, became the best-selling non-English language album to date in U.S. history. As Linda Ronstadt's new album was setting sales records, a 15-year-old singer from Corpus Christi, Selena Quintanilla, was creating a sensation of her own at the Tejano Music Awards. Tejano, the Spanish-language pop hybrid pioneered by Little Joe in the 1970s, had become hugely popular across the Southwest, and Selena would sweep the awards year after year.
Selena Quintanilla.
Selena Quintanilla.
Selena Quintanilla.
Selena.
Selena
Quintanilla.
She was at the top of the Tejano world,
You're spoiling me.
but that world was limited,
But I like it.
and Selena longed for success in the mainstream English-language pop arena. Ironically, English-language pop was where she began. Selena grew up in a musical family, trained and encouraged by her father, Abraham.
I found out she could sing probably around 6 years old. She was just gifted with that. You know, she was born with a gift. And that's when I decided, you know, I'm gonna try to make a group with him.
Quintanilla groomed Selena's older brother, A.B., to play bass. His other daughter, Suzette, became the reluctant drummer.
There was a brand new drum set there, and I was the only one that wasn't doing anything, so I was like, hey, guess what? Come here, I got something for you.
Selena wanted to sing American pop music, but her father had learned some hard lessons playing music in Texas with a band he'd had years before called the Dinos.
Once some promoters discovered that they were Chicano and not Anglo, they had gigs canceled on them. They were really forced to re-embrace their roots. And they found that their best audience were the people that wanted them to sing in Spanish.
Abraham applied these lessons to the band he was building with Selena. He wanted them to sing in Spanish.
And at first we were like, are you kidding me, Dad? Are you know, what's this? You know, like, it was foreign to us. We didn't like it. And we didn't know Spanish. So Selena really had to know her pronunciation. She didn't know what she was singing.
So I had to sit with her and tell her what the song's talking about, you know, what is the word means, and where to put emphasis, where to put the emotion.
In 1989, when Selena was 17, a young record company executive attending the Tejano Music Awards sensed he was witnessing the birth of a superstar.
I remember coming back to the tower over in Hollywood, the Capitol Records Tower, and saying to my boss, I said, you know, I think we found our Gloria Estefan. And he looked at me like, "You've been here 3 weeks, give me a break." Even though women had not achieved commercial success in the Tejano music business, the truth be told, I didn't sign her to sell Tejano records. It was the crossover aspect that really knocked me out.
Behar threw the resources of Capital EMI into promoting Selena, gambling that once she had a solid Spanish-language fan base, he could repackage her for the American mainstream. And as Selena's star rose, the Tejano music scene exploded.
The interest of the major labels in Tejano music changed everything. All of a sudden, Coca-Cola is interested in sponsorships. Beer companies are rushing and competing to get the bigger acts that are drawing. And every band has a new bus, every band has new outfits, smoke pots and light shows. It's just this transition overnight from a little kind of rinky-dink, marginalized sound into something that is the next big thing. And at the helm is Selena.
We had by now achieved tremendous success with her music in Spanish. She came over to see me one day, and in the middle of lunch, she starts to cry. I'm thinking it's a joke, because this was Selena's sense of humor, where she would start acting or do something crazy. And she goes, "Jose, I've told the whole world, you know how many interviews I've done that my English record is coming out, and we haven't even recorded the first song."
And the English album is still coming out. I know we've been talking about like forever and ever. Ya hace como cuántos años? 3 años? 3 años. 3 años.
I kept asking Jose, what's up with the mainstream American market? And he kept telling me it's not the right time. You got to build up a fan base. And finally, in the latter part of '94, Jose said, "Okay, we're ready for that now."
By the time Selena played to a sellout crowd at the Houston Astrodome in February 1995, work on her English album had begun.
How you doing, Houston, Texas? First I was afraid, I was petrified.
This woman, you cross her over and put her in the pop arena, she's going to be the next Madonna.
But then I spent so many nights just thinking how you did me wrong, and I grew strong, and I learned how to get along.
She was going to be huge.
I will survive. Oh, as long as I know how to love, I know I'll stay alive. I've got all my life to live. I've got all my love to give. I will survive. I will survive.
Then a month after this concert, and 2 weeks before her 24th birthday, she failed to arrive for a recording session at her father's studio.
We didn't worry about it because she was running late all the time. It was around 12 noon, and the phone rang as I walked in, and the receptionist answered it, and she let out a scream. And I asked her, "What's happening?" She says, "Selena had an accident. She's at the emergency room at Memorial Hospital." So immediately I thought it was a car wreck. And I ran over there, and it was something worse.
Selena had been murdered, shot by a distraught and desperate woman who'd once been the head of her fan club.
The bullet hit an artery, and they rush her to the hospital. But by the time anything can be done, before anything can be done, she's bled to death.
Tus ojos ni siquiera voltearon hacia mí. Te vi sin que me viera.
4 months later, Dreaming of You, the album Selena had been recording when she died, was released. It sold over 200,000 copies the first day. it would eventually top 6 million. With its brightest star extinguished, Tejano music soon faded in popularity. But a new phenomenon, fueled by the largest migration in the nation's history, was changing the game. With half a dozen Grammys and sales in the tens of millions, Los Tigres del Norte, the Tigers of the North, has become the most famous band mainstream America never heard of. They pack arenas all across the country, and their style of music, música norteña, outsells all other types of Latin music in the U.S. And for many of the 12 million Mexican nationals who have immigrated to this country since the 1980s, many of them undocumented, Los Tigres del Norte have become their champions. The Tigres, 4 brothers and a cousin from a ranching family in northern Mexico, immigrated to California themselves in 1968. Today, they are U.S. citizens, but spent many years living illegally, and much of their music is born of that experience.
Porque somos los mojados, siempre nos busca la ley. Porque estamos ilegales y no hablamos el inglés. El gringo terco a sacarnos y nosotros a volver.
The face of America has changed dramatically since recording artists with Mexican names were compelled to hide their identities 50 years ago. Today, Mexican-American music has a vital place on the American musical landscape. And someday, the children of these Tigres fans will create their own musical fusions as the vibrant dance between cultures in America continues.
For more about Latin Music USA, visit the series website at pbs.org. You can watch any part of the program that you've missed. Explore the origins, influences, and sounds of these rich musical traditions. And go behind the scenes to watch web-exclusive performances and interviews.